Hello everybody and welcome back to the 51 Yarns Spin Along. My name's Bex from the Tiny Fibre Studio podcast and you are watching week 39, which is domestic pet fur. What do we think, Dexter? What do we think of domestic pet fur week? Well, I do at least have one cooperative volunteer because Dexter actually doesn't mind being brushed, do you? You quite like being brushed, really, don't you? Yeah. Good boy. Because if I wave this brush at you, you come running, don't you? If I take it out of the drawer. So there's not a lot coming off him at the moment, but that is because we have just done a little bit of a brushing session and got some fur off, haven't we? Yeah, so now you can eat your brush. Yes, that's right. Funny boy. Funny boy, aren't you? And kiss. Dexter, kiss. Good boy. Good boy. So, yeah, he does not mind being brushed with this little brush. This is the Kong Zoom Groom, which, like I say, he doesn't mind. My parents' cats also don't mind being brushed with it, so it's a good recommendation if you don't already have one, or if your cats are a little bit averse to being brushed, then this might do the trick. In terms of what kinds of domestic pets you can spin, obviously things like rabbits, if you happen to have Angora bunnies, that might be quite useful. But in theory, you could either spin or at least blend pretty much any domestic animal fur. I have never tried spinning any kind of domestic animal fur before, so this could be interesting. I also don't know whether this is going to kind of stick together. It does almost kind of clump together fairly easily, so I'm expecting that it probably will. There are probably some bits of my own hair in there as well, which is unsurprising. Pretty much anything that I knit or spin must be at least 1% my hair and 1% cat fur. So I've got the wheel set up. We're going to give it a try and see what happens. So I'm using the Shack Matchless today and I've got it on a relatively fast whirl. This is, I think, the medium whirl. I'm just going to try spinning it from this little clump that I've got here and just see what happens, because I have literally no idea how this is going to react. Dexter's fur is not very long. He's obviously a short-haired cat, so it's not enormously long, so I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to let some twist into the fibre supply as I go. But actually, that's not going too badly. I feel like this is probably going to be like rope by the time I finish with it, but it's going okay. Yeah, we can spin Dexter's fur. It's one of those funny things with, particularly with, short-haired cats, that their fur feels amazing when it's on them. But then once you've brushed it and you've got it in a little cloud like this, it kind of feels really scratchy. So this is obviously not something that I would do on a regular basis. I do not keep my cats as fibre production animals. That would be kind of weird. I do know other people who have spun their pet's fur before. I also know people who have taught spinning lessons before and then have been sent dog fur by grateful customers. That's kind of an interesting story. But yeah, I think this is going okay actually. Just having it in a little clump and trying to let some twist in to the fibre supply seems to be working okay. I can't guarantee what's going to happen once I actually take it off the bobbin. It's not a massively short staple, but it is quite, how would you describe it, delicate, I guess, in the sense that you've really got to make sure that you've got some new overlapping fibres coming in, otherwise that is not going to work. I've got my hand carders here just in case I need to make a raylag, and I may well do. Let's see what happens if I try and ply this back on itself. Yeah. Yeah, you know what? That's actually not too bad. This is a very odd experience. What's this, Dexter? Is this your fur? Hello? Hello? Yeah, I know. It's a bit weird, isn't it, Mummy, spinning your fur? Yeah. What I'm finding works best is a kind of modified short forward draw. So I'm just kind of keeping a very, very short, literally about 1/2 centimetre draft. But then I'm also kind of opening up my fingers to let the twist get into the fibre supply. Okay, so that didn't go particularly badly. Kind of worked. What I would say is that because the staple length is really quite short and because the fibres don't really have any crimp, it just wants to untwist all the time. So even just wrapping the spun yarn around the Scotch tension knob on the matchless, as I normally would if I'm going to walk away from a spinning project, it just wants to keep unwinding. So if you do lose an end or anything like that, just expect bits to break off, as they have here, because the twist just doesn't really want to stay in. What I am going to do is just experiment with the idea of making some raylags and see if it's a little bit easier to spin that way. It's quite interesting actually. I've been saving this pretty much since April or so, when I knew that there was going to be a 51 Yarns episode, and it's actually really interesting that in the middle of this fur I can feel little softer bits. I don't know whether his coat changes at all during the summer, maybe it does. I've also just found one of my hairs in there as well. Big long one, that'll be mine. So yeah, let's make a little raylag and see how that goes. And if you're wondering about staple length, we're talking anything down to probably, I would say that's about 3 centimetres. So yeah, pretty short. He is a pretty short-haired boy. Okay, there's one raylag. That is probably the stiffest raylag I've ever made in my life. That literally holds directly horizontal, holds its own weight. That's such a bizarre thing. Okay, let's give this a go. As I say, when I'm untwisting this from where I hold it on the brake tension knob, I'm just being really careful not to let any of the twist out, otherwise it is just falling apart. So oh, yeah, That's not bad. That is definitely long draw with cat hair. I know that there is a little bit of Safi's hair in here as well somewhere because, you know, as I say, I have managed to get her to be groomed a couple of times in her life, but she's not particularly keen. It would be interesting to see if there was a significant difference between hers and Dexter's. I feel like this is definitely one of those things that kind of shows your skill as a spinner, even if it's a bit of a weird thing to do, because trying to figure out how to keep that twist in and actually hold the yarn together. If you're a beginner, that's probably really hard. But I think the more experienced you get, and particularly the more experience you get with things like long draw, the easier it is to keep short fibres actually together as yarn. This is definitely not going to be next to the skin quality. Even now I can see that there are little bits of fur just sticking out all over the place, which is going to be itchy as hell. But you know, it's kind of a fun exercise. Not something that I anticipate myself doing on a regular basis, which I'm sure Dexter's probably quite happy about. But it's an interesting little experiment. I'm definitely intrigued to see what else people have spun during this week. I've been keeping an eye on the Instagram hashtag for the 51 Yarn Spin Along, and I've definitely seen more dogs than cats represented. But I'll be really interested to see what people have produced. Okay, so my little sample is finished. What I really want to do, I think, is to go through and ply it. I think there's enough twist in there for it to ply, but then having said that, I've just plied it back on itself and it's pulling apart. So I'm just going to see what happens if I put some extra twist in. Yeah, I think it's just going to pull apart, to be honest. So I don't know whether to just leave it as a singles or just put lots of extra ply twist in. Let's see what happens if I add lots of extra ply twist. Yeah, it's going to need a fair amount of ply twist if that's going to work. The other alternative is to maybe run it through once more and put some extra twist in it and then ply it. So yeah, I think what I'm going to do is to put it back through the wheel with the same twist direction, just add a little bit of extra twist because right now it's just falling apart, and then I will try and ply it. Okay, so I've managed to get a little bit more twist into it. A little bit did break on me, so I had to discover whether cat hair felts. Did a little spit splice, we'll see how that holds up in the plying. But yeah, I've got some more twist in there, so I'm now going to attempt to ply it, but putting a fairly significant amount of twist in because I don't think this is going to hold together very well otherwise. In case you're wondering, yes, the other alternative is that you could blend it with something else, and that may well be the thing that I do next time if I spin cat fur again, ever. Hello, darling. Are you okay? You okay? What's the matter? You come to investigate? Yeah, what's that? That's confusing, isn't it? Is that confusing? Because normally this smells of wool, but this smells of Dexter, doesn't it? Is that really confusing? You know what? It actually doesn't look that bad. And it feels fairly good. And I think it's relatively strong. I'm not going to push my luck, but I think it's relatively strong. But yeah, I'm actually fairly pleased with that. What's the matter, Saf? Oh God, Safi, what's wrong? You can't get up there. What are you trying to do? You can't jump up there from there, can you? No, don't be silly. I should probably also mention that the laser cake that I was using today was actually the Acreworks butterfly cake, which Acreworks very kindly sent me to review, which is cool. So I'm trying that out and putting it through its paces, and I will let you know what I think in due course. So let's niddy-noddy this up and we'll see. It looks like it's certainly strong enough to withstand being taken from the bobbin onto the niddy-noddy, so that's a good sign. So there we go. We have a little niddy-noddy full of Dexter Fur Vintage 2018. I have to say, that's not something that I would do on a regular basis, but it was kind of fun, and it's just kind of cool to know that you can make yarn out of cat fur should you really wish to. Not an enormous amount of residual twist actually either, which is quite interesting because I did put a lot of extra twist in there. So there you go. We have proof that you can make a yarn out of shorthaired cat fur. Wouldn't necessarily recommend it. Don't think it's going to be the most stable thing in the universe. If I was going to do it again, and I'm not saying that this is something that I'm going to take up on a regular basis, then I would probably try blending it with something. Something a little bit more woolly would probably be a good idea to try and hold it in, rather than maybe something like alpaca, which alpaca doesn't have the same kind of stretchy qualities, so I'd probably blend it with some form of wool. But nevertheless, I have proven to myself, if nobody else, that I can spin my cat's fur. And I am officially a crazy old cat lady. But anyway, I hope that in some bizarre way that was in some way useful to you. Fairly obviously, spinning animal fur is a lot easier if you have animals whose staple length is over about 1.5 inches. If it's less than that, the recommendation is to try blending it, which is probably what I would do in the future if, for whatever reason, I decided to spin any more of my cat fur. I think that it's kind of an interesting thing to do. If you happen to be the owner of something like, I don't know, a Chow Chow, Pekingese, something that has a longer staple length, then you're probably a little bit better off. But you know, I have Tonkinese cats and they're quite short-haired, so there you go. Anyway, that was my little adventure in spinning domestic pet for week 39 of the 51 yarns spin along. I hope that that was in some bizarre way a little bit useful or entertaining to you, And if you did enjoy it, then please do feel free to give me a little thumbs up to let me know you enjoyed it. And also hit the subscribe button if you would like to keep abreast of the new episodes that I upload. Next week is Z-Spun S-Plied, which I've already got some samples on the go for. So with any luck, I will see you again next week. In between now and the next episode, you can find me on Instagram as Tiny Fibre Studio and on Ravelry, I'm Ibex. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.